Welcome back to another episode of Pardon the Interjection. I'm your host, Supreme L. I want to give high honors, extremely high honors to Prophet Noble Drew Ali and all the active Moors. Active Moors. Pardon me. Here on Pardon the Interjection, we dig up information to divulge to the people in the upliftment of fallen humanity. And yes, we have fallen, but we're on the move and rise once again, Moors. So it's a beautiful time to be alive, and I want to say that with the utmost happiness. Today's show, we have a great guest we're going to have on real shortly, and I want to get him on the line real soon here, but it is really great and honors to have this brother come on. So we're going to get him on here very shortly and do what we do. Islam family. We have our honorable guest on the line, your brother, my good brother, Cozmo L. How you doing, my good brother?
All is truly well, my brother. How you doing this fine morning?
Blissful. Just blissful, man. Now that you're on, I'm even more at bliss, my good brother.
Praise Allah.
Now we are going to go at Islam, so we're going to jump right in it because I know we've got to come back for a part 2 of this because it's just going to be beautiful. I want to go in and want to first start by saying, can you give us a rundown and an itinerary, not itinerary, but a little known knowledge about yourself?
About myself? Well, I guess I'll start from the beginning. I was pretty much born and raised in Long Beach, California, up until, say, about 18 or 19. And, back then we were into, there wasn't many rappers. It wasn't like today you had a lot of studios and things like that around. You probably had one major studio in Compton,
right,
and then one in Long Beach, and that was pretty much an R&B studio.
Okay.
So, the young rappers would come to the R&B studio, and so growing up, once they outlawed breakdancing and stuff and getting into rapping, we kind of made a little name for ourselves as rappers in the community. And of course, when this is around 11, 12, 13, and then of course when consciousness came in, some of us went to most of us went into the consciousness, and that's how I began to be introduced to the ideas of Islam, El Hajj Malik El Shabazz. Not at that time, I hadn't heard of Noble Drew Ali, but the basic consciousness that was floating around during the 90s.
Right.
So somehow or another, through studying Islam, I came across a brother who was building with the Moors, and we started building, and he was a Muslim too, so he had already understood some aspects of Islam, but what he had was an aspect of nationality about him. And eventually I linked. It was only a few Moors at that time. Again, I was still early in age, about maybe 14 going on 15.
Right.
And so after a few months of studying with the Moors, memorizing lessons, and then I was able to get my Fez and my Circle 7. Back then, you couldn't just get it off the internet. It wasn't just given to you. You had to, at least with the cipher that I was with, you had to memorize so many lessons, 101s, Divine Constitution and Bylaws, and then through that, you were presented with a Fez, Circle 7, and these things.
Right.
You probably could have bypassed it, but that was the system,
right,
to make sure that we had it on dome.
Right.
So then after that, the brothers helped me to establish the Moorish Sports Club at Long Beach Poly, which Long Beach Polytechnic High School, which went down in history at that school in the yearbooks. And we also, at one time, when the front of the school had all the flags, we had the Moorish flag up there. We were just in our teens. And so from that point on, I pretty much have stayed studying the science through Black student unions, Pan-African student unions, all the time, knowing nationality, but being a part of where our people are so that we can get the nationality to them.
Right.
So my beginning was more of a beginning of Moorish activism. One of the first programs I went to in Los Angeles, which after I got about 19, I moved up to Los Angeles and stayed out there pretty much for another 20 years. But one of the first programs I went to was up in Los Angeles in front of City Hall, and it happened to be on Morris Day.
Wow.
Which, in the city of Los Angeles, August 7th, I believe, August 7th or 8th.
Mm.
And Moors were feeding the poor on the steps of City Hall, and the Roman forces that came and told the Moors, Fezzes and all posting up, that we couldn't do it. And so next thing I know, I'm only a Moor, probably, conscious of being my nationality about a month or so, and now we're posted up in front of the I believe the mayor's office at City Hall,
Right.
And Moors go in, talk to the mayor, Moors come out, and we were back doing what we were doing with no problems. So immediately at that point, I realized the power of the information, and pretty much just been pushing ever since.
Right. And pardon the interjection. Yeah, it was two things I wanted to hit on. One was earlier in your statement earlier, you said that breakdancing had been outlawed, and I want to see if you can just touch on that just a little, because that's not new. That's not new to me, but it's not really known to a lot of people that yes, breakdancing had become outlawed. So I want you to touch on that just a little. And secondly, if you can remember, me too, going to the town hall, because the prophet said, "Go to those who know law in your." Well, you know the rest.
That will give you a favorable reply.
Please. Continue.
Well, so the first thing about breakdancing being outlawed. So coming up from the '80s, my older brother was into the pop locking and stuff, and around that time, gang banging, it existed. Cocaine wasn't in the community in the form of crack the way it was.
Right.
Growing up in the '90s, so it was a lot of breakdancing and pop locking battles and stuff going on. In fact, a lot of the gangs came from the pop locking and breakdancing crews once it became outlawed.
Right.
But we used to go to, especially in Long Beach, we'll go to the Queen Mary and different places and lay down our cardboard and start breakdancing and put our hat down, and people, the Europeans that were coming to the Queen Mary ship and other people would come put money in the hat. Right. And you can actually, do this on the street corners or wherever. Of course, you want to do it where people is, the Europeans, they had a problem with that. And a lot of times it would be large groups of us gathered, but we wouldn't be fighting. We would be dancing, but just due to the fact that they were uncomfortable, with their Jim Crow mentality, then it became an issue, and eventually they outlawed breakdancing on the city streets and in places of public places. So that in turn caused a lot of people. You either went into sport, you either went into gang banging, you either went into rapping, or a mixture in between. And then, of course, the cocaine, the crack fell into the community, and you know the rest of the story from there.
Right.
And as far as the second point, I believe the point that you were making was, we go to the city hall and places like that, not to test or to verify anything. We just go to handle business. And when you go to handle business, whether it be feeding the poor on the steps or whether it be handling something inside, you just by you being yourself and carrying yourself as a Moor, you're already going to see. Sometimes you don't even have to add, because just the nature of the body language and the response of the people of how now you have on a fez, they treat you totally different than if you'd have walked in there with your pants hanging down, and they treat you with another level of respect. Right. Now, what you do when you open your mouth is a whole nother thing, and it's best to be humble and ask questions, because that's what they're there for. They'll give you a favorable reply if you're asking questions, but if you're coming in there, on some other stuff, right, then you may not get a favorable reply. Right. So that's not to say that there aren't people in there that are designed to put up roadblocks and designed to put you under duress or things like that. But generally, if you carry yourself in the ways of your forefathers, then you're going to get a different response than if you carry yourself according to plantation culture, which is what most so-called Negroes, blacks, and colors, and even more that come in and have not fully overstood or integrated the Moorish thought pattern and the Moorish science, right, of character building.
Right. Islam. Beautifully put. Now, before I get into another further on, I want to ask you this: your music, brother. You have some really beautiful music, especially the one that I played before coming on in, or the one I was playing coming into the show, that you'll get to hear once I post it up and upload it. I think the name of it is All Natural, and it's one's for the sisters. All Natural Queen.
Yeah, something like that. It's been a while since I did that one, but that particular song was dedicated to the sisters, and like I said, my origin was in hip hop, not in rap. This was back then when Rakim was just busting on the scene. KRS-One was just busting on the scene, and things like that. So we all you had about 4 or 5 of us: Snoop, Domino, some people you may not know, say Cool, Cupid Draker. Back then I went by Tricky the Minister. You had Messiah One. It was a radio. I believe he passed away, if my memory recalls. So rest in power. And a lot of people at that time, and we pretty much all used to converge over at Mosey Stars or one of the other little areas and groups. So that was pretty much my origin. And so when I became conscious of Moorish identity, I pretty much left certain elements alone. And so in doing that, back then, you would kind of I guess you would say get blackballed in a sense. And so this Moorish information was too powerful at that time. And just having that information, and people, of course, but I still stayed with the production. I have a lot of connections still, children that are in the industry, and it's just one of those things that you wouldn't really know, something that might be for a whole nother show. I will say this, that being that I became conscious of my identity, that's probably going on about 27 years in the movement right now. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you that pretty much anything happening Moorish in Los Angeles and California is something that it's something I pretty much would be connected with either directly or on the outskirts of some fashion. So case in point is the Rass Kass, when he talks about the Moors in that lyric, right. Nature of the threat. So you see that particular song that he put together, and he used to stay in Carson. He used to rock with the Moors. Mm-hmm. Personally, I knew him for years. Was one of the ones who recruited him, and we used to go back and forth up to LA and build. This was before he had dropped that and before he signed with Ice Cube. But what he did was very scientific, brother. He pretty much put the whole Black Studies curriculum. He just ate it all. And that was a regurgitation of the Black Studies curriculum. But you had one odd element in there, and that was the mention of the Moors of Baghdad, Turkey, and Cardinal Ximenos. That information was not a part of Black Study. Right. That information was information that was actually kept oppressed by black studies departments at that time, whereas now they're allowing a lot of that out. But that lyric comes directly from the Thanksgiving for Whom lesson, and some people who have, on the Cozmo Ill channel have, heard. Oh, I see. Did you get it from Rass Kass? Or did Rass Kass get it from the lesson? What comes? The lesson was published in the 1970s in the Moorish Guide.
Wow.
And it's called Thanksgiving for Whom. And as you read it and you listen to the lyrics, you'll see that the lyrics match exactly the lesson.
Wow.
Even the date, because most people will tell you 1492.
Right.
They won't say 1491.
Right.
So there's a lot of things like that, which brings up today, the Kendrick Lamar and the movie and the Fezzes and all of these elements that people keep putting, or as a matter of fact, Beyonce and her Fez/Panther video with the Moor from Los Angeles, Salahuddin standing up there in the Fez. There's a lot of these things that are happening that every time you post a post and you say, look, a Moorish commercial, you always got somebody coming and saying, that's not a Moorish commercial.
Right.
That's this. Right. And a lot of times it's exactly that. It's somebody and groups of people. Of course, you have artists that can't come out and directly say anything because they are a fictitious brand, their own.
Right.
You study Prince, he'll show you that when he changed his name to Victor Victorian. That's what that whole thing was about.
Well, and pardon the interjection. That was going to lead into one of our next questions. We had talked earlier, and I was going to ask, why do we see a lot more of our culture as the fez and the turbans coming out? A lot of our so-called entertainers or celebrities are now, donning the fez and donning the turbans, like what's the guy named on Wildin' Out? Nick Cannon, another one of the football player for the Panthers. Oh, the Panthers, Carolina Panthers, Cam Newton. Of course, Dre 3000, which my children's mom, my mate, she actually met him in Georgia when we were in Georgia, and it's a story about his phone. If someone can get to him, and if he can hear this, he will know that he left his phone with her at her job by accident and came back, and she got a picture with him and his son, 7. So, but there's a lot of celebrities that's or quote unquote celebrities, now donning the headgear.
Well, it's one simple answer. We are the vanguard. We are the vanguard of the movement.
Islam.
And whenever you are the vanguard of the movement, then Hollywood's, and we're talking about sports, entertaining, all of that's Hollywood, is like a mirror of what's going on in society. A lot of times shows will show you social issues, right? It's something that you have, and that's why we like to watch them. You watch a cop show, and the case is about something that goes on in your neighborhood or something that goes on in someone else's neighborhood. So it brings up social issues. When I say the vanguard, look back in, when you had the 60s and you had the Panthers, and what was popular then? Leather coats and tams and sunglasses and things of this nature, because this is what the community is seeing. This is what the community is seeing as strong. This is what the community is seeing as knowledgeable and as relevant and as having a viable solution to them, or something that they would want to associate themselves with.
Right.
So it's theater is always a reflection of what's going on in society. So much so that when you have James Brown, when so-called Black Power was popular, you have him making a song like "I'm Black and I'm Proud." Right. But then when it comes around in the 80s and he's doing the movie for Rocky, is "I Live in America."
Right.
So we have to watch it. How many artists do you see flip-flop to go with the trend?
Right.
So we have to understand that the trend, though, is only a reflection of the work that has been put in by the group that trend is reflecting.
Right.
And so, again, it's very simple. The Moors are the vanguard. Now, they're the vanguard for a few reasons, but it's not any something that anyone can ego trip or be vain about. because again, Moors are, as collectively, are missing other elements that other groups, organizations, associations, so on and so forth, are further along in, that either need to be adopted or reinstituted, I should say, because everything emanates from the Moorish movement, whether people realize it or not.
Islam. And that will bring us to another question. Where did the concept of the Moorish Cultural Ministry come from, and how did you come up with that?
Well, the Moorish Cultural Ministry, I say around, so again, I go back a few years, back to the teenage years, so pretty much coming up through the ranks, held a lot of different positions at different times, a lot of frontline positions, mufti, assistant mufti, treasurer, scribe, chairman, assistant grand sheikh or sheikh, and I guess you could say around 30. You started to have young Moors kind of coming in, and of course we're getting older. So in looking and assessing and seeing what the movement needed, the brother out here that goes by the name of the Giant Bay, and he's pretty much the one who has established, active Moors here in Khalifa, regardless of what anybody said. He established it years and years ago, and he actually appointed me to cultural minister to fit the necessities of that time.
Right.
And at that particular time, it was an appointment, and I can't say I was fully living up to it at the time. I don't think I fully understood, what it was at that particular point. But coming around my mid-30s to around my mid-30s, I had some health problems, and once I rebounded from those health problems, I wasn't able to be on the front line, at least at that time, rehabilitating and whatnot for a couple of years. And that gave me time to reflect and really understand what that position was. And so I started writing. I started with the time that I had on my hands of not being such a frontliner. I was able to pick up the pen and pick up old manuscripts, and the perspective, I also got online, and what I saw out there, I saw that there was a perspective that we had here in Khalifa of the activism of education, of establishing the brick and mortar institutions and businesses in our collective area. So I started to write, and I started to teach what I was taught insofar as the history and trying to connect some of the dots, and primarily writing books for non-Moors, but people coming into the movement so that they can have a perspective as to what they're coming into.
Right.
And as a result of writing these things, and people, the Moorish people showing so much love and purchasing the books, and I want to give a special shout out to More TV and the Cynthia Martin Ill Show, who nominated me Author of the Year. I felt, it was a very great honor, and I just want to mention them. I decided that if I'm going to be the Moorish Minister of Culture, which just meant, emphasizing the cultural aspects of movement, because the religious side was in such disarray, that maybe if our people were able to know their culture, then maybe they could understand, Islamism and things like that. So it just in reflecting in these things, and necessitated to develop the actual ministry and the cultural ministry, which is not so much religious as it is social, cultural, and social. And it's only in the past this year that I'm actually really launching it nationally beyond just working in the Khalifa area. And so I'll just read real quick right here one of the things that we have written about, and it pretty much answers the question, what is the Moorish Cultural Ministry? And it says, the Moorish Cultural Ministry is responsible for the preservation of Moorish American culture, heritage, literature, and intellectual property. The Moorish Cultural Ministry aims to empower Moorish American people with the knowledge of their history, culture, and traditions, which make them a unique people. Our goal is to protect Moorish culture from social and economic expressions from exploitation. Mm-hmm. The Moorish Cultural Ministry draws its purpose from Act 6 of the Divine Constitution and Bylaws of the Moorish Science Temple of America, found in Noble Ali. So, in falling into the Moorish Cultural Minister position, I realized that the wealth is in our culture, right, and in our literature and in our intellectual property, which are basically just ideas, which we say in the ministry that there's a, where it says, there's a line in the Circle 7 where it says, what is the Asiatic Covenant, where it says, so shall these fortunes unite thee with thy brothers. Hold on, let me see if I can get it. So shall the fortunes of thy father contribute to the support of his whole race, and his care be continued to you all, and your love to each other. So, what are those fortunes? And those fortunes are our culture, our history, and our perspectives that we have on history, and those musical, poetic, literary, and artistic expressions that often go exploited under the so-called black labels, because, of course, property can't have property.
Right.
So once we realize that, hey, we have this intellectual property, which is wealth, because when you take a book, for example, a book creates royalties, which is passive income. You write the book once, you put it up there, it sells over and over and over again. But what is a book? A book is composed of words. Words are thought. Thought is the cause of it all. From these thoughts, you're able to produce finance. Not just once, not just twice, but over and over and over again. Not just during your lifetime, but even after you're gone. Now it's in trust for generations and generations to come, for them to maintenance and find out new and interesting ways to create intellectual property on top of that intellectual property. Right. And so, the Moorish Cultural Ministry wants to emphasize these practices to our people to show them how to, take control of it, whether it be literature, music, art, and how it can benefit them beyond just some cred or some type of recognition. And then we see people take it and put it in, make trillions of dollars in movies, like we see with the Panther.
Islam, brother.
Islamism.
That's very, very good. And I know we coming down to the short end of our stick for this part of the show. We will have, pardon me, we will have to come back for the part 2. I just have 2 more questions, and I guess you can answer them in part or in full if you may. But we will be coming back for round 2 on this, because it's very interesting and very beautiful, and I love this energy. The energy is very, very beautiful. Now,
praise be to the Most High, brother.
Islam. The first part, or the first question. Let me ask it like this, so it can be a double shot. 1 and 2. Does proclaiming your nationality or nationalization make you free? And what you like that more, huh? Islam more. And two to that same question, by it's coming from our prophet, Noble Drew Ali. What does he mean to the movement?
What does Noble Drew Ali mean to the movement?
Correct.
Islam. Well, yeah, I do get a kick out of the first question, because I actually posted something on my wall that answered that question. And if there's anyone that's listening to the show that is friends with me on YouTube, on Facebook or on Instagram, or just Google Cozmo Ill, and there's a post up about the Moorish Cultural Ministry which addresses this question. And the answer is simply no. That doesn't make you free. What that does is nationalization nationalizes you and puts you under the jurisdiction of a nation. Mm-hmm. And proclaiming your nationality, you go on record as proclaiming your nationality. That is what these things do. And these are steps in also correcting your status. Correcting your status doesn't make you free. You know, freedom is something that you have to earn. It's not something that you're going to be able to file a piece of paper with and have it. And when you proclaim your nationality and when you get nationalized, you are the same person that you was before in the same conditions that you were before you did it. So that is the beginning of the process. You are now on the path to freedom. You may be free-minded, but true freedom, which is synonymous with self-determination, which is synonymous with do for self, is something that you actually have to gain, and you have to gain it by effort. Now, the steps into those efforts must study, and then but we have acts and we have instructions. The Holy Quran of the Moorish Temple of America, the book which is to be read for all Moors, which is nationally. That are the instructions, and the acts are the Constitution and my law. And I can't remember the brother's name. I know him as the Grand Governor. I can't pull his name right now, but I say Grand Governor, so I'm not stealing it. Right. But he said you got to act on the instructions. You see? So once you proclaim, now you have to act. And that's what's missing from the movement is the action. What makes you free are your actions.
Right.
What makes you free is behaving. You can know if a person's free because all free people behave a certain way. You can know if a person is free because all free people have certain things.
Right.
And this is how you can determine if someone is free. Because if I don't have everything that I need to operate without having to depend on somebody else for anything, then that means that I am dependent. And if I'm dependent, I'm not independent. And that means that is not by choice, then I am not free.
You're not free. Islam.
You know, especially from the influences of that person. If I depend on them for my basic food, clothing, and shelter, banking, schools, hospitals, and necessities of life.
Right.
And on top of that, security. You know. So these are the things that free people have, and it's going to take free people to establish them. So if someone is building and acting towards building these people, then that's a free-minded person that's working towards true physical freedom on this plane. Now, do we have free will as individuals? Yes, we do. Because even a lot of people like to say, you know, slaves didn't have any choice. The slaves always had a choice. Well, between freedom and slavery, and that choice was death. They could die rather than submit. So to injustices, I mean, and so individually, everybody has free will to sacrifice their life for the sake of grave injustice, or to go right or left, or to, you know, make these mundane decisions of life. We're talking about determining one's destiny. We're talking about determining one's future, the future of an individual and the future of their family. And that only comes with having the things that nations have. We have government, right? We have people, right? We are a nation because the nation is the people. But are we free and independent, or even part and partial in power and the basics of food, clothing, and shelter? No.
Islam more.
And the last question, I believe, was, what does Noble Ali mean to the movement?
Islam.
Islamism, my brother. Noble Ali, prophet. You know, that question is you could go on volumes, but it's important to say that he is the foundation of Islamic movements, Moorish movements, and consciousness of our people here in this country, because he was the first one. There were people that were teaching. There was knowledge that was floating around. There were always people from the motherland and natives from here who had held on to the science and was teaching. That's not debatable. That's not under question. But what he did was he established it nationally.
Right.
Nobody else can lay claim to that. He came and he established it to the point where, all right, when we want to look and say, well, where did the nation come from? Where did the Panthers come from? Where do all of these groups that helped us in some regards and got subverted and became detrimental in other regards. What was the root of it? And when we start tracing our origin in this country, and when we start tracing our movement in this country, so we can see what it started out to be, what was the original purpose, and then be able to gauge where we are in that process. Have we moving forward, sideways, backwards? Then his value becomes immense, because when you see what he did insofar as establishing, insofar as revealing the wicked ways of the secret societies and how they kept us entrapped in their secrecy, or how he exposed the trickery and the rules of the social constructs that they used to keep us in bondage and that they used to keep us outside of the constitutional fold. I mean, these are cutting edge topics of the day. These are cutting edge issues that are only being dealt with today. Yes. And he brought it way back then. And so his now that's just on the social political side. When you look to the spiritual side, which I rarely talk about, but since we're talking about Noble Drew Ali, the prophet, I can speak on that. He was the first to establish Islam in America, and Islam is the only law system that is we ruled under in this last time in modern times, and it is the only one that rivals the Christian world today. And when I say the Christian world, I mean the Roman cross order, not the followers of the Christ, because in some regards, Noble Drew Ali is that Christ, because and the Holy Quran can be looked upon as the Injil, or the book of the Christians, because what it does is the first parts of it start out teaching about the lost years of Jesus. Why? Because we got to catch up on what the European edited with his edit of the Bible. Let's realize he didn't write that. That's his edit of the Bible. So some people say, oh, well, Noble Drew Ali, he just took this from that, from there, and there, and did that. Yes, that's his compilation. Right. The Bible is the European's compilation. That's the Injil. Some people call it the Injil. That's their Injil. Right. Our Injil is the Circle 7. That's our compilation. That's the one we need to read. Because first we catch us up on Jesus and what he was really talking about, right? And what, and then it goes into the principles that was only taught in the Masonic church, Masonic lodges to the preachers at that time. Right. Right. And lesson on religion, if people read it properly, is telling you all right there. The sun is not Allah, though it's noblest image. His life giveth warmth to and life to the products of the earth. Admire him as the instrument of Allah, but worship him not. To the one who is supreme, most wise and beneficent, to him alone belong worship, adoration, thanksgiving, and praise. And then it talks about bowing down in humble submission. So, so it's interesting, because there's a lot of Islamic terminology that's used, because in the Islamic world, when Jesus returns, he's going to rock with the Muslims. Why? Because this fake Roman cross order of white supremacy is not what the real Jesus was about. And we know what Jesus means, justice. So what that means, that justice is going to be on our side this time. Islam. And why is it going to be on our side this time? Because we coming with the truth. Islam. And that's that ball that's rolling down on anybody. Think about it. Anybody who got in the way of that ball, like he said, then got ground down the pop. Islam. And that's what's going to keep happening. Right when you think, oh, that ain't real, and someone sound like they got a real juicy argument, here come Mo, because Mo's are studied. I think that, more studied sometimes, I won't say too much, but some Moors are so studied that, you can read the reviews of the Black Panther movie and break it down to the very last compound historically. This is a gift. This is a gift that it didn't come from the PhD or the MA or the BS. It didn't come from their halls of learning. These are people that the Prophet produced, right? I mean, Allah produced through the Prophet with this body of knowledge. Nobody raising us up in knowledge like what the noble son of Noble Drew Ali, the Prophet, brought. So, and that's what made us the vanguard, because we're natural heads. We're not artificial heads that or Professor Tweety Pooper that's
Right.
put up here to say, hey, this is what you need to do and go along with this. Whatever keeps you in this social condition. But hey, this is a revolutionary revision or resurrection of history. But not only is it history, it's living history because it's history when you add the cultural aspect into it. Now it's not just something that people are getting the history and gaining a sense of pride from. It's something that they're getting their history. Now they're practicing their culture. Now they're connecting with their ancestors. Now they're getting down to business the way that they're supposed to with the right frame of mind. And not like Negro, black, and colored frame of mind, plantation politics, backstabbing each other. And the world would much rather deal with the more on high divine principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and plantation politics, hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harm.
Islam, Moor.
Islamism.
That's really, really, really beautiful energy, and I love that dissertation that had to come from divine sources. And that's the difference to take us back to Islam. That takes us back to being active Moors and not passive Moors, because that's what the Prophet need, active Moors. So with that being said, before we cut here, because I know we went past a little bit, but we're gonna make that up and make
I
it
never
right.
was, my brother.
There you go, Moore. There you go. I love it, Moore. I love it. So we will be back for part 2 for this, but before we cut out, I want to say, do you have any shout outs and salutations to anyone before we cut the line?
Yes, I would like to primarily offer an opportunity of active brothers and sisters, or 2 active brothers and sisters, to become involved in the uplifting acts of the Moorish Cultural Ministry. And I'm sure you'll be able to put up some information during your show, so I won't be long-winded, but anybody interested in writing can write the Moorish Cultural Ministry at gmail.com, or they can write to me directly, the Minister of Culture at gmail.com. What we normally ask is that people please send a letter as to why they would like to join, and either a resume or a brief description of their skill set, because this is a group of Moors where it's about work. What do you get when you join this group? You get to other fallen humanity, right. And that's pretty much it. But like I said, there is information that is valuable to be able to uplift brothers and sisters individually, for their families, and then for their communities in particular. So we want to, after we change ourselves, it's on us to change our environment. So establishing uplifting programs in our communities, pop-up health clinics, establishing brick and mortar businesses, barbershops, restaurants. These are things that we want to aid and assist with and build with people that are already in the forefront of doing these things in their community, but want to do it collectively and for the benefit of the Moorish people as well. So, anybody that's interested in being a trailblazer in these Moorish times, and being a part of the fulfillment of prophecy of these Moors that are coming in with their eyes wide open and want to see that sea of Fezzes, it's coming, Moors. It's here, basically, and it's just where you see yourself in it. So we're launching it for people who have a non-sectarian mindset. Doesn't matter what temple you come from. Doesn't matter if you are Moor or more. As long as you practice the principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and want to see a better future and a united destiny of your people, then the Moorish Cultural Ministry is for you. And pretty much that's what I'll offer on this round. And perhaps on our next conversation, I'll have some more shout outs to people and things of interest. One more shout, which I gave a shout out earlier, is More TV. If you haven't heard of More TV, go look it up on YouTube. Watch the shows. Cynthia Martin show displays a lot of talent, and she also goes in on a lot of the literature. So just engross yourself in positive, uplifting acts and Moors, family.
Islam. Very good. And with me, I want to say first and foremost, I want to give high honors to Prophet Noble Ali, because without him, we would not be here today doing this. And I want to give high honors to you, my brother, Cosmo
Praise
L.
Allah.
All the work that you're doing and you've been putting in is highly appreciated, if not by ones you know. It's definitely appreciated by me, brother, and I will be sending honorary letter to you. Yeah, let you know because I am OSHA certified safety man. That's Occupational Safety and Health Administration, but I teach safety, so I think that would be good for our people when we start to rebuild here. We rebuild ourselves and buildings, of course, and
Islam.
that's
It's of utmost. In fact, that is needed actually before. So let's build, because we can. We don't want to have any more Black Wall Street, because Moorish Wall Street is here, and it's not going to go down like that.
Islam, more Islam. And with that being said, I want to thank last, but first, obviously first, I want to thank the mothers. And I want to get a question I wanted to ask you, but I'll save it for next time on part 2, and that's what does the mothers and the sisters mean to this movement? But I would like for you to answer that on the next show, so we'll definitely have a part 2 coming. So with that, I want
all right, yes. And I may, if I can, on that particular show, bring one of the secretary of the Moorish Cultural Ministry as well.
Please.
And so that we can hear from the feminine energy.
Please.
And that's one of the reasons why, because we have deputy minister position. Now, you could be a male or a female to be a secretary, but it just seems that the sisters obviously gravitate towards that position. And so the ministry, this is also a move to empower the sisters, because if people are reading the signs and knowing what's going on right now, that is the energy that completes this movement. And it's time for them to be heard and to nurture the nation. And so I would like to have them on as well, and we can go into some of these things, because a lot of the programs focus on health and education for the children, so that we can actually produce guidance of the nation like we're supposed to.
Islam, more very good, and please have her on. She's more than welcome. She is the first to be welcome, and I don't mean that against no brothers, but women, the sisters are always y'all are always first to be welcomed on Partner Interjection with your brother Supreme L. So with that being said, I want to thank my co-host Cosmo L for coming on. It was a beautiful,
and much gratitude, my brother.
I repel it right back to you, my Moor.
Right.
And until part 2, I want to thank my co-host Cosmo L. Thank you, my brother.
Thank you, my brother, and I trust we meet again.
Islam, Moor. Peace, Moor.
Peace and love.
Yes, that was my good brother Cosmo L, and that was some really good information and good energy. And I want to send that out to him, and we're going to come back with a part 2 for that, because that is very interesting. And especially I can't wait till the sister come on, because this is where it all starts. It starts with you, sisters, with the mothers, the sisters, the daughters. It starts with y'all, all right, and it's going to end with you all. All right, we're the brothers, we the men, we the bronze, we the strength physically for y'all. So we're going to take care of that. But we do need y'all mind, y'all brain power, because women, y'all have the muscle that really counts. All right. So with that being said, I want to say the information is out there, family. Don't believe me. Go check it out for yourself, and you'll be amazed at the jewels you'll find on your treasure hunt, family. With that being said, thank you for joining me on another episode of Pardon the Interjection with my co-host, Brother Cosmo L. As I always say, Islam, love, and peace forevermores.
711 AD, the Moors invaded Spain under General Tariq. The Rock of Gibraltar stands as an altar to this glorious day, when the Spanish population learned the ancient Moorish ways. Hebrews and Muslims living under nature's law. As a Lord and Master, the order of Islam. We took it to all 4 corners of the planet, but in the history they call us pirates and bandits. We made it all the way to North American shores, where we was taxing Europeans everywhere that we more. But back to Spain, now the center of learning, we brought the science and chemistry for all those yearning. And for adjust the knee and close all the Kemetic schools, bringing darkness to the European world now ruled by the Roman cross order, superstition and greed. Ignorance for the people, only priests can read. We built libraries, built public baths, sanitation for a nation that needed it bad. We brought stones from Cabo, paved cobblestone streets, Egyptian cotton for their garments, left shoes for their feet. Herbology, chemistry, and astronomy took a hold of it and flipped the script with no apology. We started falling in the low and chasing European women, following their traditions and codes. Next thing you know, we lost the last stronghold. Grenada.
Regardless of our names, our language, our religion, our culture, our God, our folkways, our mores, regardless of the very power of our own spirit.
Many more once fell, still many more were sold as slaves, those who couldn't rest in themselves. Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand now commissioned Columbus to find the distant Moorish lands. Though we fell on land, we still ruled the seven seas. Thus a handsome ransom paid by the U.S. to Tripoli. Wasn't until Stephen Decatur made his mad dash that the Moors rulers started to dwindle at last. Meanwhile in America, Moors were being stripped of the Negro, black and colored of their citizenship, labeled 3/5 of the human being. No rights bound to be respected by any European. Laws never been changed, only been amended. But if I tell you you're not black, you wanna get offended.